As the loss of life from the novel coronavirus approaches 300,000 around the world at the time of writing this article, specialists and researchers are scrambling to build up numerous immunizations to stop the pandemic. Be that as it may, it is anything but an opposition. It may really require a few distinct antibodies fabricated and dispersed by various labs so as to adequately destroy COVID-19 from the planet, as indicated by Anthony Fauci, the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, who co-composed a paper about immunizations distributed May 11 in the Journal of Science. Most well-being specialists state that the infection won't quit spreading until 60% to 70% of the total populace is resistant. Others express the best way to arrive at that degree of insusceptibility without an amazing loss of life is through antibodies. There are as of now more than 100 immunizations allegedly being worked on, with 7 purportedly as of now in clinical preliminaries. That implies there are more researchers working more enthusiastically and quicker on finding an immunization than any time in recent memory throughout the entire existence of pandemics. In any case, regardless of whether at least one of the antibodies now in progress ends up being viable, it's still too soon to make expectations, yet this is what we know so far about the race to build up a coronavirus antibody that may help introduce a conclusion to the present pandemic. Immunization is a clinical treatment that ensures you against a sickness like a coronavirus or smallpox. The quick and painless of it is that an immunization fools your body into believing it's as of now had the ailment, so your body's common barrier, the insusceptible framework, fabricates antibodies against it. At that point, if you somehow manage to get tainted, your body would call upon the antibodies to battle the infection before you feel debilitated. Immunizations normally take around 10 to 15 years to create. That is partially in light of the fact that any new clinical treatment should be completely tried for well-being before it tends to be circulated to millions or billions of individuals. The mumps immunization took 4 years, which is broadly viewed as the quickest antibody endorsement throughout the entire existence of irresistible sickness. As of this composition, there are more than 100 immunizations a work in progress in nations around the globe, including the US, UK, Germany, Japan, and China. 12 are either as of now in clinical preliminaries or beginning in the following, not many months. Out of those 12, one specific champion is by all accounts Oxford University. Researchers there state their antibody. Anyway, the chances are not in support of us, as about 6% of immunization competitors ever endure to advertise. There's an entire reiteration of issues that could drop even a promising applicant. Take, for instance, what happened when researchers attempted to build up an antibody for SARS. It reverses output and really made individuals progressively powerless to the illness. Something very similar occurred with immunization for dengue fever. To exacerbate the situation, coronaviruses are an enormous class of infections. Thus far there are no immunizations for any of them. Be that as it may, this specific coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, has some remarkable characteristics that may help analysts chipping away at an immunization. For instance, some infections, similar to this season's cold virus, transform rapidly and frequently, which is the reason there's another influenza immunization consistently. Early proof proposes that the coronavirus doesn't seem to do that. Albeit a few specialists have theorized that an all the more exceptionally infectious strain has as of late created, others aren't so certain. The more we abandon an antibody, the almost certain center will move toward medications, for example, the test antiviral medication remdesivir, which has supposedly indicated promising outcomes. With powerful remedial medicines, numerous infections that used to be lethal are no longer capital punishments. Patients with HIV, for instance, presently can hope to appreciate a similar future as non-HIV positive people, because of huge advances in treatment. Without a coronavirus immunization, the street back to typical might be more enthusiastically and more, yet not really unthinkable. Coronavirus testing, including counteracting agent testing, and contact following endeavors would most likely need to strengthen. In the end, the worldwide populace may arrive at a 60% to 70% rate required for group invulnerability to secure the individuals who aren't resistant. Be that as it may, the entire endeavor stays hounded by vulnerability about whether any coronavirus immunization will demonstrate viably, how quick it could be made accessible to millions or billions of individuals, and whether the surge, compacting a procedure that can bring 10 years into 10 months, will forfeit security. Johnson & Johnson and Moderna have declared associations with assembling firms, with Johnson & Johnson promising 1 billion portions of an up till now lacking immunization before the following year's over. In any event, while promising arrangements are found, there are enormous difficulties in scaling up creation and circulation. Bill Gates, whose organization is burning through $250 million to help spike immunization improvement, has cautioned about a basic deficiency of an ordinary yet indispensable part: clinical glass. Given the stakes, it is nothing unexpected that while researchers and specialists talk about finding a worldwide immunization, national pioneers accentuate vaccinating their own populaces first. Be that as it may, different nations are additionally flagging their expectation to nationalize their methodologies. The most encouraging clinical preliminary in China is financed by the administration. The strain between the individuals who accept an immunization ought to go where it is required most and those managing weights to flexibly their own nation initially is one of the characterizing highlights of the worldwide reaction. At the point when our bodies experience another infection, they begin figuring out how to make successful antibodies against it. Yet, they are in a race against the infection as it increases. In some cases, they produce viable antibodies rapidly enough to clear out a disease. Yet, at times the infection wins. Antibodies give the insusceptible framework a head start. They instruct it to make antibodies ahead of time of contamination. The primary immunizations, against infections like rabies, were produced using infections. Researchers debilitated the infections with the goal that they could no longer make individuals wiped out. Various gatherings are debilitating the coronavirus to deliver an immunization against COVID-19. In April, the Chinese organization Sinovac declared that its inactivated antibody ensured monkeys. Another methodology depends on the way that our invulnerable framework makes antibodies that lock exactly onto infections. As researchers came to get this, it happened to them that they didn't need to infuse an entire infection into somebody to trigger insusceptibility. All they required was to convey the part of a viral protein that was the exact objective. It is one thing to plan an immunization in record time. It is a completely extraordinary test to fabricate and circulate one on a scale at no other time endeavored. Billions of dosages, exceptionally bundled and shipped at beneath zero temperatures, to almost every edge of the world. So the race is on to stretch out beyond the gigantic strategic issues, from fundamental assembling ability to the deficiencies of clinical glass and plugs that Bill Gates has cautioned of.